Welcome to the Hannah Solar Show. Just call me the drill master. Today I'm going to be building this brand new EcoFlow modular power kit that just came out step by step. I want to thank EcoFlow for sponsoring this video. Now, I just need to learn how to build a cabin. Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard, right? This system is a first in compact modular power systems that's designed for tiny homes, RVs, and off-grid living. It's a customizable plug-and-play power setup that can help you charge up, store, and use energy wherever you need. I've been using portable power stations for a while now, and they're convenient because they're portable. But what if you want a more permanent solution for your off-grid home or your home on wheels? I've been thinking more and more about buying a plot of land and building a homestead off-grid. I've also been thinking about ways to provide power to it without acquiring an electric bill or paying a very large sum of money to run power to it. I've set up solar power systems in the past, but it can be pretty complicated. There are lots of parts involved, wires, fuses, schematics to figure out. It can get really messy. Not only does this plug-and-play system simplify the whole process, but you're also saving space because the power hub combines a DC-DC converter, a battery charger, 2 MPPT controllers, and an inverter all in one. This means less wiring and less components to coordinate and more freedom to customize. I have the system with two 2 kWh batteries for a total of 4 kWh, but they have multiple options to choose from all the way up to 15 kWh. There's 4 different ways to charge the batteries that can be combined for more rapid charging. You can charge by solar, by alternator, by AC shore power, and via smart generator. You can also control and monitor the system with the EcoFlow app, which helps visualize the power being used, the power being stored, and the status of your batteries. This modular power system is a great addition to your toolkit, an easy to install modern off-grid solution that provides you with solar energy on the go every time. Head to my link in the description to visit EcoFlow's green energy solutions. But before we get started building this system out, I want to give a full disclaimer. Believe it or not, I am not an electrical engineer. I'm just a hobbyist that enjoys solar power systems for living off-grid. Playing with or installing electrical systems can cause serious injury, electrocution, fires, or can even be fatal if you don't know what you're doing. And just because you see me set up my system a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way for you. You should always consult with the manufacturer for your correct installation process for your specific situation. And if you don't know what you're doing, EcoFlow can help you find a professional service provider for a fee to help install it for you. While I've installed many different types of solar systems, I'm just a hobbyist, and this video is for testing and entertainment purposes only, and you should not replicate it. I'm going to start building this modular power kit now. First thing I'm going to do is attach the power hub. I've attached the AC/DC smart distribution panel. Let's move on to the next part. The last thing I need to attach is the power kit console display screen. Okay, so now that I have the power hub, the AC/DC panel, and the display screen attached, mounted, and ready to go, let's go ahead and set this power system up. One of my favorite things about this system is that it comes with the cables and hardware nicely packed and labeled. I don't have to go out to the store, source and build these cables, make sure I have the right gauge and size. It's easy and clear cut as possible. This is the RJ45 cable. It's going to connect from the power hub to the power kit console. Now I'm going to connect the AC main out cable from the power hub to the AC/DC panel. What this cable is going to do is provide AC power from the power hub to the AC side of the panel. To do this, I'm going to connect these 3 clearly labeled wires to these 3 terminals on the AC side. So now that I have my AC main out cable connected, let's take a closer look. You now have 6 20 amp breakers with 6 coordinating terminals with each their own L, N, and ground. So this is perfect for off-grid cabins, homes, RV builds, van builds, where you want to have AC power out of a receptacle or an outlet, or hardwire 110, 120 appliances. So with each of these breakers, if you hardwire or run a receptacle or outlet to it, you'll now have 110, 120 power. Moving on to the DC main out cable. The process is very similar. We're going to take this end of the cable and attach it to the power hub in the DC out port. Now that this end is connected to the power hub, I'm going to connect the other end of the cable, the positive and negative, to the DC side of this panel. By doing this, I'll be providing DC power to the DC side of the panel. These are also clearly labeled positive and negative. They correlate to the positive and negative terminals on the DC side. Now that I've connected the positive and negative terminals to the DC side, I now have DC power. I have 12 20 amp fuses and a coordinating 12 positive and 12 negative terminals. Can we just take a second to admire how clean this box is? If you've ever built a solar system in your life before, you know it is not possible to set up a system building any of this from scratch this quickly. I just plugged a couple cables and wires in. 2 power cords, RJ45, I have one more RJ45, and then these 5 wires. And essentially, I'm almost ready for my power out setup to be ready to go. I do want to note that I have been touching everything with my fingers. If there was AC or DC power of any kind running into this power hub behind me, I would not be touching anything. There is absolutely 0 power running into the hub or into any of these parts. Just letting you know. What these 2 RJ45 cables do are allow these 3 parts of the system to communicate together so that I can control devices, turn them on and off remotely. Once you're done wiring all of your devices in the distribution panel, you can cover it with this nice fancy cover, and then there are screws that secure the cover to the panel. After that, you can use these lovely stickers and label under each of the fuses or breakers what they're for. There's also punch tabs along the sides and bottoms of the distribution panel that allow you to bring wires easily in and out. So now that I have the distribution panel, the power kit console, and the power hub set up, and I have all the power out cables plugged in, let's actually bring some power into our power hub. Bringing power in. The first method we're going to go over is AC power. This is the AC power in cord. This end would plug into the AC power port on the power hub, and then the other end would be powered by your house. An instance in which I could see you using this is you were using this system as a backup power supply, and you had batteries attached to it. So you used your grid home power to charge up backup batteries attached to the system in the case that you lose all power to your home. And this would power whatever you plugged into it until your batteries ran out. However, if you're using this system for off-grid power, that doesn't really make applicable sense because there's no power lines, you're not on grid, you can't use grid power to recharge or charge the system. I guess there is one instance I can think of if you are traveling or living in an RV and you're staying at a campground and you have this system installed in your RV, you could probably technically plug your system into the campground's power source to recharge the system. Generally speaking, for off-grid power, AC power in is not going to be used very often. The next source of power in is via alternator, and this is a pretty common way of bringing power in if you're living and traveling in a vehicle. So in theory, I could hook up this end of the cable to the first port on my hub, which says alternator in 60 amp max. And this end would attach to either the battery or the alternator, depending on how the vehicle is set up. I personally would put a fuse in between the cable and whatever the cable's attached to, the battery or the alternator, but that's just me. You're using the alternator to bring power into the power hub, and the power hub is using that power to charge the batteries connected to the system. It's a really powerful way and convenient way of recharging your system while you're traveling. The third way to power the system is via solar panels. But before I plug those into the system, let's go ahead and plug in the battery so we have something to store the energy we harvest from the sun. In front of me, I have two 2 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. There are multiple battery sizes available. 2 kilowatt-hour batteries and 5 kilowatt-hour batteries, and you can combine them in multiples to get the power requirements that you need. As you can see on the front, there are 3 battery ports. So you could combine 3 5 kilowatt-hour batteries for a maximum of 15 kilowatt hours. But more importantly, you need to decide how many kilowatt hours you need and what space you have to put them in. For example, if you have an off-grid cabin, you have much more space to put more batteries compared to a van, where you might only be able to fit 1 or 2 of these smaller batteries. There is a mounting kit that comes with these brackets and straps, and they stack really nicely on top of each other for small spaces. To plug these batteries in, you just plug the cord into one of these battery ports and then into the battery. There's also 2 additional ports for a total of 3 battery ports. The third port can also be used with an EcoFlow smart generator as well. So now that I have the battery hooked up, let's go ahead and plug the solar panels in. This is basically the last thing I need to do in order to get the system up and running and actually utilize some of the power from it. Solar panels. There are 3 ports on the front of the power hub. The far left one actually doubles as an alternator or a solar panel port. They're 30 amp max ports. However, that doesn't mean that you can only put 3 panels total. There's actually a 4800 watt solar power input max for this system. Today I'm going to be plugging in 2 100 watt solar panels, but I don't have to use 2 ports. I only need 1 port. I'm going to take this cable, plug it into the first port, and then the other end of the cable, I could technically plug this into 1 panel. However, the kit also comes with parallel connectors. And with these, I can plug these into this cable, like so. And now I can plug 2 panels through 1 port. And then I have 2 more ports available to plug in additional panels if I wanted to. When I plug in my solar panels, I preferably like to use an inline fuse between the cable and the panel. Some people don't like to do that. It's a personal preference of mine. I do it with any system I set up. So let's go ahead and plug this into the panels and see if we can bring some power into the hub and power something.
Once I plugged the panels in and hit the power button, my battery turned on.
So far it's working just as it's designed to. Right now, input power is about 49 to 50 watts. Keep in mind it's about 7 p.m. right now, so the sun is going down, but it's still pulling an adequate amount of power. Let me show you a closer look with the screen. Another really cool thing about this console panel is you can visualize your AC circuits and your DC circuits. You can go in and name each of them. Maybe you want to name one of your DC circuits. I already named the first one ceiling lights. Let's try the second one. We'll name it bed lights. Ceiling lights, bed lights. Then you can control them by turning them off and on, or you can use the app to control from there as well. Yay! I'm done! It's ready to power up a blender and have some iced coffee. Let's do a quick recap on what's going on before I turn this puppy on. Solar panels are taking in sun. Energy is traveling up through this cable into the hub, which has a solar charge controller in it. Solar charge controller is storing it in the batteries. Simultaneously, that energy that is being stored is being converted with the built-in inverter into usable 110/120 power, because I'm using this plug right here in the front of the panel. However, ideally, if I had this installed on an off-grid cabin that is soon to be, I would have receptacles installed, hooked up to a breaker on the AC side of this panel, and I could plug the blender right into the receptacle. So now, all that I'm missing is the off-grid cabinet. I have to learn how to build one of those. I got the solar system. I got that all figured out. But enough of that, let's make some iced coffee. Hope you're thirsty. That's the sound of power. Sweet, sweet power. This is delicious. This is a great combination. Quick coffee break. I'll be right back in 5 minutes. Hopefully this video is helpful. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to leave me a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them, or reach out to EcoFlow with any concerns or questions as well. I really hope that this video is helpful. Setting up a solar power system can be really overwhelming. If you've ever seen any other videos on it, it seems really complicated because it is, and this seems really easy because it is really easy. It's probably the easiest system to set up on the market because all of the parts are made by the same company, the interface, all the sizes, wires, gauges, fuses, it's all done for you. When I built my first system, I had to figure all of that out. You have to make sure you build the cables correctly. You have to make sure that the panels are the correct size. You have to find the inverter. You have to find the solar charge controller. It's just this big puzzle you have to fit together. The reason this sounds easy is because it's easy. And hopefully this can be a possible solution for your off-grid needs. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.